Hi, I'm Maya from Bookworm Dreams and welcome to a new video. So today is the start of a reading project. I've decided that this year I'm going to reread a bunch of some of my favorite series and some that it's been a while since I've read and I remember enjoying them. So I want to see if they hold up. So the first thing on my list is going to be the Hunger Games trilogy. So I have book 1, The Hunger Games, then book 2, Catching Fire, and book 3, Mockingjay. This is a dystopian trilogy written by Suzanne Collins, and this is a very popular trilogy in which we follow Katniss Everdeen as she lives in this dystopian world where there are 12 districts, and each year there is like... it's not an election. People basically pick 2 people from each district to participate in the Hunger Games, which is like an arena style sport event, which is basically like a match to the death. There's usually one winner. This spawned a really successful movie franchise and basically brought dystopian YA fantasy to the front and became very popular, and that's why we had a bunch of other YA fantasy trilogies in basically the same vein as this one. I think this is the one that started it all. Now, how I got to reading this. During the summer, I went to the movies a lot. And there you could see the trailer for the new Hunger Games movie. I want to say The Ballad of Song and Snakes, but that makes no sense. Which was basically a prequel to the Hunger Games. And during the trailer, you could hear another version of a very famous song from those movies. The Hanging Tree, and I went looking for the song on YouTube, and then of course started getting shorts suggested to me and videos about the Hunger Games and clips from the movies and whatnot, and I was like, well, I could rewatch this. I haven't seen it in a while, so I went to rewatch the movies, and they really held up. They were really good, and I really enjoyed them. I was like, oh, I think it's time to go and check out the books again. And I found out that for the 10th anniversary of these books, the audiobooks were read by Tatiana Maslany. So you guys might know her from She-Hulk, but I know her from Orphan Black, which is a really, really strange science fiction show where she did a fantastic job playing like a bajillion characters. Anyway, so I got really excited about this prospect of listening to her read the books. So this is what I'm going to try to do in the next couple of days, is to finish the whole trilogy, immerse reading this book. I've already divided it into 3 parts. So each time I finish a part, I'll tell you what I think. So the first one is basically, it says here, winning will make you famous, losing means certain death. 12 boys and 12 girls are forced to appear in the TV show called The Hunger Games. There is only one rule: kill or be killed. When 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen steps forward to take her sister's place in the games, she sees it as a death sentence. But Katniss has been close to death before. For her, survival is second nature. So yeah, I am worried a bit how I will deal with the whole YA-ness of the whole thing. Hopefully the audiobook narrator will fix that for me. But yeah, I'll talk to you when I get something read. So, it's much later and I finished the book. So yeah, gotta say, it holds up. I think it was fascinating to see how much they talk about the movie and sort of the narrative that they pushed with the movie and the whole, I guess, love triangle that is fairly normal in YA fantasy and sort of became more popular with the appearance of the Hunger Games. Was sort of pushed onto us with the promotion of the movie and the books and whatnot. I kept expecting more love triangle-y stuff, but it wasn't. It was Katniss trying to survive the Hunger Games. So for people who don't know what the book is about, I said before, but in the first part of the book, we follow Katniss as she goes through the reaping, where her sister is picked to become the volunteer for her district to participate in the Hunger Games, and Katniss volunteers, and then you sort of see how they are prepped to be presented to the public, and then they train before the Hunger Games start. And then the second part is the Hunger Games, the beginning of the games, and Katniss trying to survive and trying to figure out whether whatever strategy she and Peeta created with Haymitch, who was one of their mentors. He's a previous winner of the Hunger Games. So what, like, specifically their strategy would be, and how, if there was a secret strategy for Peeta. And she basically spends the entirety of the book questioning Peeta's motives, and it's just very paranoid. You keep reading it, I'm like you are really paranoid. And should there be reasons behind it? I don't know if there's like a logical reasoning behind her paranoia, and whether the boy she met, I mean, technically she met like a week or two ago, would be like out to get her. I mean, I get it's the Hunger Games and whatnot, and like I guess they're expecting for there to be only one winner, so you're supposed to kill everybody else, and technically, you know, they were supposed to kill each other. So maybe there is a little like logic to it, but still, it felt like a bit much. And then through the game, we meet some of the contestants. There's a whole thing with Rue, which didn't impact me as much as it did when I first read it, because I watched the movies recently, a couple of months ago, so I'm like, I was expecting it, so it wasn't really all that shocking. But I did like how very sort of straightforward this was. It wasn't like flowery writing, it wasn't like difficult, it wasn't a difficult read. It really went on, and the pacing slowed down a little bit. There was a point where we're just kind of stupid when you look back at it. So at one point of the game, they changed the rules, and there was a rule change that, you know, there could be both winners of... This is spoilers, by the way, for the first book and the first movie. So, I mean, if you haven't read it or watched the movies yet, or you don't care, just keep on watching. So basically, they changed the rules that there could be two winners from one district. So Katniss went to look for Peeta, who was injured at some point in the games, and he was hiding and whatnot. And so she went on looking for him, found him, and they had to ramp up their romance. And now throughout the whole story, since this book is sort of told from Katniss's point of view and only her point of view, we sort of see her questioning whether this feelings that Peeta has for her are real, or whether it's like a strategy. And when they sort of ramped up the romance for the sponsors and for the viewership of the Hunger Games to be able to get some gifts and be able to survive, it was like they had like a picnic, like literally in the middle of these games. They had a picnic where they sat down and talked about like their pasts and their feelings, and it was just like, it seemed a bit out of place in the overarching situation of life and death that they were in, and that slowed down the story. So yeah, but you know, there are always ways to sort of ramp stuff up, and rule changing, and them sticking it to the man, or the capital, with them trying to kill each other, basically commit suicide, so no one would win, and so they both won. It was an interesting read. Yeah, it was a fun read. I liked how the second book is set up. Basically, the Hunger Games end, and they go back to the capital, and from there on, another game starts. They're basically trying to survive pissing off the capital, and they have to keep up this ruse of their romantic relationship. But the problem is that I think Peeta's feelings are there, and Katniss's are not, and she's very confused about her feelings. And it was really fascinating. Like, she's trying to survive, she's looking for Peeta, and then just like thoughts of Gale came popping up, and I was like, dude, come on, don't like focus on one thing. Like, she kept comparing Peeta to Gale, and you know how Gale is better at surviving, and you know, Peeta is very clumsy and not used to like this whole lifestyle that Katniss had to adapt to survive in their district after her father died. And they're like little things to push the plot in one direction, and you can see like this beginning of the love triangle. I think that will be more pronounced in the second book, so I'm not looking forward to that part. Besides the whole romantic subplot and romantic wanderings about, you know, the people in her life, I really enjoyed being in her head, and I enjoyed how, you know, she has her convictions and is stuck to them, and she didn't let like the games change her. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, because there's always this discussion online on whether the ending of the Hunger Games, whether it fit Katniss's character, because a couple of times throughout the first book she talked about not wanting to have children, not wanting to get married, and if you've read the books or watched the movies, you see that sort of changes. And I want to see like if I can follow the change of her in that way through the story, through the books, if her like final decisions are made because she wants them, or because she's still playing the game to survive. Read book 1, I know I was going to like update you after each part, but it went by quite quickly. And yeah, I'm going to get to book 2 tomorrow. So it's the next day. I'm about to start Catching Fire. And I keep thinking about like the first book, and I'm getting more and more upset. Oh, but the thing is, I don't know if I'm upset on Katniss's behalf, because Peeta had a really shitty reaction at the end of the whole thing, the book. And, you know, finding out that she was most of the romance that they had started off as a strategy. And, you know, maybe she caught some feelings at some point. I'm not sure. Or am I more angry at Peeta's behalf? Because they did spend a lot of time in the second part of the games kissing. So I understand how he's confused. But also I'm like trying to be there for Katniss and like understand her motivations. So it's very puzzling. I'm going back and forth between being angry at Peeta for being butthurt because, you know, Katniss did whatever she could to survive, and he thought that he was having a romance with a girl who didn't know he existed 2 weeks ago. And, you know, basically the same with her. Like, this whole I have feelings thing that happened in the first book, from his side, seemed like a strategy you know, concocted with Haymitch to make the people watching the Hunger Games sort of be on their side and try to help them. But then, you know, like, I don't know. And I'm just kind of worried about the second book, because I think that this whole feelings dilemma will be compounded by, you know, going back and, you know, them being basically teenagers. I think Katniss is 16, Peeta is her age, I think, and Gale is 2 years older. I guess, wish me luck as I start this book. Broke my tripod / selfie stick / thing that holds my phone. So this is a weird angle I'm gonna suffer through until I get a new one. So I am now like almost halfway through this. I finished part 1, in which we sort of see how Katniss has been dealing with her life and shit after returning from the games. And they had to do like a victory tour through all the districts, and basically you find out that there has been some rumblings and shit happening throughout the country because of what she did at the games. You know, sort of giving her actions in the games gave people like inspiration and push to rebel against Panem. So I'm just going to mention the love thing, the love triangle thing, and then I'm just going to move on, because I'm trying not to just focus on the romance in this book. So after returning from the games, at some point Gale kissed her, and he's like, oh, I just have to do it once. And she's all confused and shit. I mean, understandably, she's like, I don't want to say, she's inexperienced, and you know, and now she has like 2 boys, you know, trying to fight for her attention, and you know, and she's not used to this. She's just, she's in survival mode and has been for a little while. And when Gale gets into trouble, and he gets whipped by the new peacekeepers that are in their district, because, you know, there's new rules, there's new, like, harsher rules that have been implemented since the rebellions have started. She's then now firmly in Gale camp. So she's like, okay, I love Gale, even though she wasn't sure, like, 10 pages before, but now she loves him because he almost died. And she's now also planning to join the rebellion, that is, to try to start some rebellious actions in her district. And I mean, it's kind of she's wishy-washy, really. And as she's a teenage girl, and this was written like more than 10 years ago. So this was written 15 years ago. And I want to say the female characters in YA fantasy have evolved, but I don't know, I haven't been reading YA fantasy because, you know, I found it frustrating to be in the head of a teenager trying to, like, save the world while also suffering through her first experiences with love and such. So yeah, finding Katniss a bit wish-washy with her feelings and, you know, what she's trying to achieve. Because on one side she has to protect Peeta and her family because President Snow, who by the way in the book has been described as a small man, and I keep picturing Donald Sutherland from the movies, and Donald Sutherland is many things. Small is not one of them, and it's really funny. Yeah, so she has to protect Peeta because Snow's like, well, you started this shit, and now if you don't help quell it, I'll kill everyone you know and love, and as you do. I do really enjoy the sort of casual violence that has been depicted in these books. I'm not jiving with it in grimdark fantasy because it seems more vicious, but this is also kind of vicious. But I guess I'm like familiar with the story, so it doesn't hit me as much. What was I talking about? The romance. Yeah, she's wishy-washy, but she's now starting to take an interest in the rebellion. So yeah. Also, and now we got to the quarter quell, and we just found out that all the previous winners of the Hunger Games will have to participate in this year's Hunger Games. And I like how, since we are only in Katniss's head the entire time, you can definitely see how her trauma is very, there and affecting her daily life. And now that she's going to have to go through this again, it's going to be an interesting read. Because I remember watching the movies and just sort of coming to the conclusion that Jennifer Lawrence, the actress who played Katniss, basically most of the time in the movies, she either screamed or cried in terror because, all the stuff that's happening to her has been horrific. So I have that to look forward to. I think we're going to go meet the new batch of candidates and whatnot. So, yeah. Gonna try to ignore the romance because there shouldn't really be stuff happening right now. You're like trying to save the world. But whatever. Another thing I want to mention is that I am enjoying the writing. I am enjoying the world building. I am overall enjoying the books. So yeah, I'm gonna see how far I get through this tonight, and I'll probably update you when I finish the book because I'm halfway through. So. It's the next day. I finished Catching Fire. I think my recent watching of the movies has sort of taken out the tension of the story. I think if I haven't seen the movies, I think I would be more tense about the action in the story, especially with this second Hunger Games, because, I know everything that's, that happened, so I wasn't surprised. There are some details that are surprising, like Haymitch's constant drunkenness and his constant battle with alcoholism, which I've, I think, forgotten because it's not really all that mentioned, or spotlight of his character wasn't on that. It's, it's on other things. But yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the first one as well. I just realized I didn't tell you if I liked it or not. I'm enjoying the books. I'm enjoying the writing. I'm enjoying being in Katniss's head. If I ignore it, because this sort of traumatic thing that the characters are going through is reminding me of when Sarah J. Maas writes her characters, and and she gives them massive trauma, and we're in their head most of the time, and we are going through it with them, and this is similar to that, and I find that I enjoy that. And yeah, in this book, Katniss and Peeta basically go back to the Hunger Games, and now the rebellion has started. And yeah, we are about to, I think, in the last book, rebel. And, whatever happens with that. Again, I want to mention, because I know how this ends. Throughout this book as well, Katniss talks about not wanting to get married and not wanting to have children. So I'm really curious what will happen. This is spoilers for the end of the series, by the way. Because I'm really curious what will happen in the third book, or how will the author justify or bring the character to that point where she is able to get married and have children with someone. And yeah, I'm curious. I want to see, because usually this was a character who was, not one of the first characters, but this was like a character that had that going for them, to be a role model for young children, whatever, teenagers and such. To not want to be married and not follow traditional roles that society sort of puts on you. So yeah, I want to see like what happens that made the character change their mind. I'm going to go and try to locate the third book in the series somewhere over there, I don't know, and I will get to it and I'll share my thoughts after a little bit is read. But so far I'm enjoying this. If only every other YA fantasy was of this quality, then that would be good, but it's not. Well, it's been several days later since I last talked about this. I started and finished Mockingjay Book 3 in the Hunger Games, and now I have finished the whole trilogy. In this third book, basically the rebellion against Panem is underway, and we follow Katniss and her group of friends, allies, and new partners as they are rebelling, and stuff happens. I did get my answer to the question of, you know, the ending. This is going to be spoilers for the ending of Katniss deciding to start a family in the end, because in the epilogue we have like 2 pages and we see her with her husband and 2 children, and she said that it took her husband 15 years to convince her to have children. You know, she is so traumatized. I really I don't know what that says about me, but I really enjoyed reading about her trauma. It really sort of connected me to the character. I think this book was the one where I was most connected and the most emotionally invested in the story. I teared up at some points. And yeah, I think the first and this one are my favorites. The second one is like, you know, it is interesting. It is, you know, tense and exciting, but I think this one like punched me emotionally because we see there is a change in character dynamics between Peeta, Gale, and Katniss, because at some point Peeta gets kidnapped, taken by the Capitol and tortured and whatnot, and he comes back with this warped view of reality and of Katniss and their relationship. And I really liked how whatever thoughts we were thinking about Katniss's relationship with Peeta and how she was treating him, he said it, so he voiced them at certain points in the story. Well, he was like, you know, oh, like, I now see who you are, and to see how Katniss reacts to that characterization of herself, of like, you know, she you know, when you have like deep thoughts about yourself and that are not very, very flattering, and to have someone who you admire, care for, like sort of say them to your face, and you know, her reaction was really something. Overall, this whole trilogy really held up. I was worried. This is a really good trilogy. I had a really good time reading it. I don't regret it at all. This was really good. The audiobooks were done really well, and I really, I think would encourage people who haven't read these books to give them a read. They are over 15 years old, but they really held up and they're really good. There are some really interesting thoughts on, you know, wars and how people in charge rule us all and how they make decisions concerning children in wars. And you know, because I'm telling you, this last book was fucking awesome. So that's my first reread project done, which is really cool. So yay me. If you have any thoughts on this trilogy, if you want to share when you last read them, if you read them at all, feel free to do so down below in the comments. If you like this video, please press the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And that is it. I guess look forward to the next rereading project. When that will be, I have no idea. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!